What is stress and how do different people cope with stress? This is a complex question due to the various forms of stress that are present and the various causes of the stress, as well as the different ways that people try and cope or manage with their stress. Stress, which many of you, when you think of, probably see pictures similar to that, or many of you have probably been in a position like that. Uh, Stress is defined as the physical and emotional response to events that threaten or challenge us. And uh, different life events and certain circumstances or situations uh, produce stress, and those things are known as stressors. And many people think that stress and stressors all have to be correlated with negative things or bad mental health or whatever. But not all stressors have to be negative things. And in fact, many times stress can stem from a very positive thing, and many times are positive things that end up producing the stress. Like things like planning your wedding day, preparing for a newborn baby, starting a new job, or maybe starting a new major or program at your school. All those things kind of build up, or even maybe a performance in sports or music or whatever. Doesn't always have to be bad though. Uh, when stress really first strikes, one of the first real things that people may notice in the first initial reaction of the body is biological. And it begins when the adrenal glands begin secreting hormones that begin to raise your heartbeat a little bit. Uh, Blood pressure tends to increase. Respiration rate may get a little out of control. And you might begin to perspirate or sweat, which obviously, if you've ever been nervous or stressed, you know that those are all things that you do experience in those type of situations. Uh, these reactions are actually intended to be beneficial for living things like humans and other animals like that. Uh, and they're supposed to be beneficial in the sense that in life-threatening situations, it's going to help you better defend yourself because you're going to be more prepared and ready to go if that ever is necessary. But exposure to this reaction to stress over prolonged periods of time, however, is not beneficial and is actually the opposite and is actually more harmful than helpful. And if the stress continues for a prolonged period of time, it can ultimately lead to the body having a declined ability to actually be able to handle the stress that you're experiencing. And eventually, it will lead to a weakened immune system that can make a person more susceptible to things common as illnesses as common as the common cold, or diseases as severe and as intense as like cancer or something like that. That's a pretty extreme example, but the immune system can be very weakened due to stress and stressors. Things like backaches, headaches, skin rashes, indigestion, chronic fatigue, and things like the common cold are all possible illnesses that could be caused by your stress. Those are all more minor things, but those are kind of more the common things that you would probably experience from stress. Uh, in the contrary, however, stress actually can also trigger the immune system to overstimulate itself, which makes the immune system actually kind of turn itself on the body and start attacking the body itself, which obviously is not good and starts deteriorating organs and tissues inside the body, which, yeah, not a good scenario as well. Now the question is, where does the stress come from? Well, there are actually many limitless variables of things that contribute to a person's stress levels, and each individual person has different unique things that cause them stress or unique stressors to them. Uh, like I know when I get really overwhelmed with a lot of things on my plate at once, that's when I really get just really stressed out because I'm a perfectionist. I really like to get everything done as well as I can, and I feel like if I don't have enough time to perform the task that I want to do in that amount of time, I feel the stress really build up, and I have to just kind of calm back down and really just prioritize what I need to do in what order and kind of rationalize it more than let the stress really get me emotional or out of control. Uh, but like I said, where does the stress come from? There are actually many different things that can do it. And psychologists Arnold Lazarus and Susan Folkman actually theorized that people go through a two-step process which determines whether a person will experience stress or not. And the first stage of this process is known as primary appraisal, which is an individual's assessment of the event or circumstance that they feel is going to cause them stress and whether they deem it as a negative, positive, or more of a just neutral thing. After that phase, though, the second following stage is known as the secondary appraisal, and this is another assessment made by the individual, but more of answering the question of, can I handle it, and can I cope or manage with these, and do I have the resources and the ability to kind of come back to homeostasis and not overreact to everything. If the resources and the coping mechanisms are lacking, though, and aren't there, and the threat is great to the person, the person is most likely going to experience a good amount of stress. When talking about stress, though, the most important word and the most important aspect of it is coping, which coping is the effort to control, reduce, or learn to tolerate the threats that lead to stress. Things like painting, playing music, shooting hoops, yoga, and meditating are all great ways of helping to cope or manage with stress and are really good for kind of shedding a layer of that stress and just kind of getting some relaxation. I personally have always had very heightened anxiety. Ever since I've been a little kid, I've had anxiety and OCD and just have really been really fidgety about certain things that like most 4-year-olds shouldn't be worried about that. And so I myself have adopted into my own lifestyle. I do yoga daily as well as meditate daily, and they both have better helped me manage my stress as well as my anxiety more than any prescription pill or any other tactic ever has. It really just helps me kind of have some more mental clarity and be present in the day instead of more present in my anxiety and my mind and my worries and my stress. I'm more, okay, I can shed that and let that go and focus on what I need to. And those are two really good coping mechanisms. There's somebody doing some yoga and somebody doing some meditation. And yoga and meditation actually are, because of the breathing and the relaxation techniques you do, you actually get a lot more oxygen going into your bloodstream as well as your brain, which helps you have better mental clarity and kind of not make things as big of a deal as they are. It kind of puts things more in perspective. But yeah, I really can't tell you how much of a difference it's made in my life just doing those two things. I thought I was going insane with my anxiety and my stress at one point, and I adopted that lifestyle of just making sure I'm rigid with meditating and doing my yoga, and it really helps. And I can feel the difference between the days that I get to do it and the days that I'm lacking time and end up not getting to do it for the day. I just feel my stress levels a little bit higher or a little bit lower depending on if I get to do it or not. Most people either cope using problem-focused coping, which is primarily managing a threatening situation by directly changing the situation to help reduce the stress. Another tactic is another form called emotion-focused coping, and is more about the conscious regulation of emotion and changing your state of mind instead of letting it consume you or destroy you. And sometimes there's even a third kind of coping mechanism known as defensive coping. And defensive coping is when unconscious strategies distort or deny the true reality of the situation. And defensive coping is a good thing and can be beneficial and is very efficient in some minor occasional situations. But if it becomes a habitual thing, it can turn into a big negative very fast. And it can distort the way a person deals with the reality of the situation, which, if they have a distorted reality of the situation, they're going to deal with it in a different way than they probably would have liked to. Uh, but a very important part of coping is having some type of social support to just help be your support system and help keep you going and push you through the hard times and kind of get you back up on your feet when you're not strong enough to do it on your own. Uh, but I mean, whatever stress you may be experiencing, it is important to know that you're not alone. Everybody experiences stress, it's part of life. And without stress, life would actually be a lot less interesting. Uh, so, when it really boils down to it, the most important thing is to make sure you find a coping mechanism that works specifically for yourself and something that you enjoy. And on top of that, finding just even one friend or a significant other or just an adult, anyone that you can just really trust and put some confidence in to be your support system and help you manage or cope better with whatever stress you may be having. That's pretty much all I've got for today, and thanks for listening. Have a good day and good mental health.